Hello everybody, my name is Roddy Waddell and I'm going to show you my very simple technique for preparing champagne cocktail. Champagne cocktail is an aperitif. It's quite a strong alcoholic drink. I would recommend that you don't have more than about two, and if you're driving perhaps even one would be sufficient depending on your skill. Now very basically it's four ingredients. We've got champagne, we have cognac, and we have Angostura bitters, and we have sugar cube. There's four ingredients. The method straight away I'll show you is a sugar cube into each glass, and then we top this up with a very small amount of what they call Angostura bitters. This is all the way from Trinidad and Tobago. It's quite strong, it's about 45% proof, but 45% alcohol rather, but you don't need very much. Just drizzle a small amount of this onto the sugar cube so that the sugar cube absorbs the bitters and infuses itself into the drink. Obviously I'm going to show you the next two ingredients, which will be cognac and champagne. So I'm just going to show you what I would recommend is a very small dribble, just a couple of dribbles there. You can put more in if you want, but it's probably not necessary. So that's the Angostura bitters. We then come to cognac. I've got two supermarket brands of cognac here. Cognac is French, you can only buy it from France. It's quite a sophisticated drink. It has a lovely bouquet and smell to it and imparts a nice flavour to a glass of champagne. There's various different types. This is what they call a VS champagne, which is perfectly adequate for champagne cocktail. You don't want anything overly expensive. I paid about £17 I think for that bottle. Alternatively you can use, again, supermarket brand. This is a VSOP, a very special old pale. It's aged longer in oak cask, and the method, it's distilled twice, minimum of 2 distillations, but can be anything up to 4 distillations. So that's a more refined cognac, I suppose. You could use brandy, just ordinary brandy, but I prefer cognac. So the next phase of preparing our champagne cocktail is to just put a small amount of cognac into the glass. Not a lot, because otherwise it'll make it quite a strong drink. I would suggest you just dribble a small amount of cognac over the sugar cube, barely covering it really. That's probably quite sufficient. And again, a small amount in here. There we go. That's I think enough cognac. As I say, you can add more or less depending on how strong you want to make it. I think that is that's a good measure. Maybe a bit more than a measure of cognac in each glass, but should be more than adequate to produce a nice drink. Now, for the champagne, again, I bought a supermarket champagne. I was very pleased with myself last year. I bought a whole load for a party that we were having, and this is some of the champagne which is left over from that party. It's quite good to drink on its own, but if you're going to make a champagne cocktail, I would recommend that you don't buy vintage champagne. It's a lot more expensive, £50–60 and upwards for a bottle of champagne. I paid about £11.50 for that. I was very pleased. I thought I'd done a fantastic deal, and then a week later the supermarket reduced the price to about £7.50. So some you win, some you lose. Now, going back to the champagne, before you open it, you must make sure that it is very cold, and I would recommend it needs to be at least between 5 and 10 degrees Celsius. There's a couple of things that I just need to explain about a bottle of champagne. I always, because the bottle is cold and wet, it can be slippery, so I would recommend that you hold it with a tea towel, one for the base, one for the top. Now, before I do anything more, I just need to explain that you need to remove the foil on the top of the champagne bottle, and then underneath that foil you'll find that the cork is wired to the bottle. This is purely to prevent the cork coming out on its own. If the champagne gets too warm, it could push the cork out, and then you'd lose a lot of the champagne. Now, it's a little bit fiddly, but the process is fairly straightforward. And be very careful when you open a bottle of champagne. This is very important. When you open a bottle of champagne, you must be very careful not to point it at anybody or anything of value, pictures, light fittings, even windows, etc., because the force of the cork coming out of a champagne bottle can be quite devastating, and if it hit you in the eye, it would probably blind you. So I would recommend that you're be very careful about where you point it. There's the wire, which retains the cork into the bottle. Then the next process is to make sure you've got your tea towel around the base. The basic technique is to hold the cork still while twisting the bottle. So if I hold the cork rather, twist the bottle very slowly, you can feel the cork moving in the bottle, and that is an ideal sound. A sort of a loud, I don't know what you'd call it really. It's the gas escaping from the bottle. You don't want it to go bang pop, because then you're more likely to lose some of its very valuable contents. And then very gently you want to pour about half a glass to begin with, because again, if you pour too much, the glass, as you can see, there's a risk of it overflowing. And again, and then we go back to the first glass. Very gently pour that in. Again, just coming up to the, I think it probably looks quite nice to sort of top the glasses up. And as you can see, it's all frothing away very nicely. I'm going to put a bit more in. That's probably enough. Don't want to overdo it. There, so that's your very simple glass of champagne. You can see the sugar and the bubbles frothing away. Visually, it's quite an exciting thing for people to look at as they're drinking it, and I wouldn't recommend having more than about 2 of these to sort of get you in the right mood. If you're driving, then maybe better not to drink at all, but I certainly wouldn't have more than 1 glass if you're driving. With a meal, then maybe 2 would be acceptable, but if you're going to have wine with your meal and any other alcohol, then you do need to be careful, because there's cognac mixed with champagne. It's quite a potent drink. But there we go. So I'm going to toast to you and anybody else who wants to try my simple champagne cocktail. It's a very nice drink, nice and cold, nice taste. It's a little bit sweetish, so it goes down very easily. Very easy to drink. Before you know it, your glass is empty and you'd like another one. But there we have it. So enjoy.